Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Billy Yeagers, and today we're going to be talking about Breaking Bad. Yes, we're going to have a little diversity here, talking about Breaking Bad. And we're also going to talk about the ending of Better Call Saul. So we're talking about the ending of Breaking Bad and the ending of Better Call Saul. So obviously, spoiler warnings ahead. I should say that, but I am anyway. So there seems to be some sort of misconception about that Walter got everything he wanted and he got with it. There was no consequences for his little drug empire and all the little escapades that he takes. Many people feel it's unfair. It's I think tone deaf it's a flawed word, but I think we're going to use the word tone deaf for now. As far as Aaron, as far as Walt goes, and it doesn't help the fact that his facial expression at the end, he looks like satisfied and accomplished, and the script even says, so this is not how you can, the script even says that he is satisfied. And the other thing is that when Hank is talking, I believe he's talking to Jesse, when Hank is talking, he says, I'm not going to let that bastard run out the clock. So it's framing it like, okay, so the only way that if Walt runs out the clock, if Walt dies with one kid that gets to him or something else gets to him, that will be, he will be brought to justice, there'll be no justice, and he will win. He will have won. So now we have to get to him, but we can't get to him. And so that's how it's framed. So he dies after he, makes amends and yada yada yada. It is viewed as though he gets with everything. But I'm here to tell you that that's actually not true. Now, the thing with having, if we want to have a relevant story, there has to be two things. In this context, there has to be two things that has to be done. A, there cannot be no contrivance, no deus ex machina. That goes without saying. And B, it has to apply to real life. All of these stories have to correlate one way or another back to real life. So if you're making a story and you have a drug kingpin, if your message is being a drug kingpin is good, then go for it. But if your message is, and I'm pretty sure it is, that you should not be a drug kingpin, right? Being a drug kingpin is bad, it's evil, being selfish is evil. If you were to do that, then the character would have to face some sort of consequence as a result. Well, I should specify a penalty, a negative consequence as a result. Because if your story does not do that, then that would then be encouraging the actions, especially when he gets filthy rich off of it. Okay, so that's how it has to work. So when you have a character especially like Walter White, legal penalties are not always imposed, and I think we all know that. We hear about all the time. People who are not, like, for example, where's Epstein's client list? But did they get away with it? See, that's the thing. Because the client list is because the clients were not brought to legal justice, legally speaking, did they get away with it? And that's what we're going to be exploring today. So there's two major punishments that Walter receives. Two major ones. We'll start with the least of which first. So what was Walter's main issue? What was Walter's main sin? The thing that got him into this mess in the first place? Well, it was his pride. His pride and his ego, among all things, is what got him into the situation that he got into. So, but at the end of the story, naturally speaking, this wasn't contrived, but naturally speaking, because his family didn't want his money, because they were disgusted by him and by what he was doing, he had to have the money delivered anonymously. All this talk about charity and, I want to take charity, I want to provide for my family, yada yada yada, which I don't just say provide for family is a good thing, but the hubris, the pride, the ego of not wanting to take handouts, even a handout that was a job. He was offered a job. He was offered a job. That's not a handout. That's you working and earning your keep. That is not even a handout. But he was too prideful to take even that. And he could have given his family a bunch of money. Skylar would have been proud of him. His son would have been proud of him, and later on Holly would have been proud of him. And he would have gotten the recognition and respect that he would have earned as a man who came and provided money for the family. But instead, as a natural result, no contrivance, as a natural result, his money was given to his family, but it was given anonymously. No one knew. It was not connected back to him. And at insult to injury, on national television, he was disparaged as a nobody, basically. He's just a criminal. He has a Nobel Prize. Yes, he was. He has a Nobel Prize. And you forgot that. And you forgot that because of all the crimes that he's committed. So instead of his Wikipedia page having his Nobel Prize on it, it has all of his crimes. Because that's the only thing people are talking about. He was not recognized, even though he played a big part in Green Matter. Because they are a company, they have to have PR. They cannot give him the credit that he deserves. He deserves the credit for the contributions that he did. But the only thing he got credit for was an A. Even though he's a brilliant, all that went to waste. All that was blotted out. All those accomplishments and achievements were blotted out. And, of course, he saw on television, so he knows that that's the case. So that's one major thing. And the second thing that happens to Walter is, of course, his family gets destroyed, and the 112 thing actually happens. The last time that he talks to his son, he curses him out and tells him he hates him. That's the last conversation he has with his son. People talk about Philan, they say, he talks with Skylar, he gives him Jesse, he does this and that, he takes it with his son. And I always feel kind of awkward when they talk about this with him and his son, because him and his son, they never had a goodbye. I don't really interpret that scene as him saying goodbye to his son. I could look at the script, I suppose I could figure it out, but that seems more like a longing or a regret for what could have happened. Because, again, the last conversation they had was a very negative conversation, and he knows it's their last conversation too, because he knows he's gonna go shortly thereafter. He knows it's the last conversation, especially in Felina, because he knows he's gonna go die. But to lose your family, that's painful in itself. That's very horrific in of itself. But I really like to just zoom in and focus on a father and a son that have a permanently broken relationship, and the last time his son ever spoke to him was because was telling him that he hated him. Literally, the 112 nightmare actually happened to Walter White. And I'm not a father yet. But I would like to implore any of the followers who are watching this to really, if you think that Walter faced no consequences, I'm sure you don't think that, but if you do, if you are one of those people, just really dwell on that. Imagine your son telling you he hates you, your relationship is permanently destroyed forever. That's the last time you're going to see him. Another thing that I was realizing when me and my brother was realizing when we watched Granite State was that he's basically in prison in the cabin. Wow, there's a lot of similarities. He's in this cabin and he's basically in like solitary confinement for a year. This guy, he goes out of his way to pay people. He pays people to be with him. That's the kind of state that he's in. This is all a natural consequence of what happened. There's no contrivance, there's no nothing. So Vince is clearly and masterfully showing that while he may have evaded legal issues, he still has to face the consequences of his actions. And now you may be saying, well, this is all very nice and compelling, but what about his facial expression? Maybe he was indeed punished, but the show didn't execute on that properly. And as much as I'd love to say that, that's actually not true. There's two reasons why he looks satisfied at the end of Felina. And one of them's headcanon, but I'll use the real one first. The real one is that he has now come to terms with who he is. He did not cook meth for his family. He did not cook meth for his family. He did it for him. And he, out of all people he lied to about this, he lied to himself the most. And we, the audience, know that. And of course, since Walter is doing that, Walter is suppressing that. So it's not giving him peace. That's a part of him and he hasn't come to peace with yet. So now he's come to terms with this. Now he's finally admitted verbally and to himself that this little meth escapade was not indeed for his family, but it was for him. He feels at peace now about the situation. And the second thing that I would like to point out, which is immediately headcanon. I suppose I could dig around and find the real answer, but let's just do this for now. He dies around what he loves. And ultimately, I hate this when he put above everything else. He put the meth in front of everything else. Do you love the meth more than the Skylar? I'm not going to comment on that for now. But he definitely did put the meth above everyone else. And he dies around his project. And of course, this is why I say songs are important, music is important to the show. Music is a big part of motion pictures, and no one can tell you otherwise. Song Baby Blue plays. And it's a romantic song, and it's talking about a baby blue. Blue meth, dies in the meth lab. I'm sure we can all make the connection that he feels satisfied down around what he loved to do. And so it's sort of like a bittersweet ending. On the one hand, he did suffer significantly, but he did do some positive things. He came to terms with himself. He freed Jesse. He killed his enemies. He said goodbye to Skylar. Yada yada yada. So in that way, he got, and he knew this was going to happen. He already lost his family. So in that way, he felt satisfied knowing, okay, the day went how he wanted. It wasn't ideal, obviously, that wasn't the ideal day, but he planned the day, he planned it out, and all went according to plan. And so he dies satisfied, you'd say. But how does it relate to Better Call Saul? Because remember, I said in the beginning, we're talking about Better Call Saul. Now, the cool thing I love about Grand State and even the first episode, the fact that he goes to New Hampshire. And as all of us New Englanders know, the motto, live free or die. And so Walter would rather die than face legal issues, criminal charges. But at the cost of his family and everything else. So he traded freedom, which again, not really freedom, but you guys already know about that. He traded freedom for his family. And so, since he didn't want to get caught by the cops, and there's nothing the script says. The script says that the cops try to get him, but he avoids them yet again. So he was free, but he died, right? With Jimmy, and this is the other thing I like about the show, and I really like about Better Call Saul, is that Jimmy, slipping Jimmy, and is always able to get out of any situation. Remember what she's in? You think, oh, okay, it's over now. He always finds a way to get out. And on top of that, he's a lawyer. Lawyers are, infamous for getting people off of their deserved comments. That's the whole stereotype about lawyers, right? And that's exactly what he is. He's a person who gets people, off the hook, and he gets himself off the hook so many times. But even though he loves an evil woman, this still causes a strain in the relationship. And so there's actually three options. There's live free, there's die, or I know what to call it, but there's this what Jimmy chose. And Jimmy did the opposite of what Walter did. Jimmy chose, okay, I'm gonna face legal consequences so that my personal life can be intact, so to speak. So he chose to face the music legally speaking, very important, because punishment is not always in the legal sense. So he chose to go to prison so that he can have Wexler. You see, he chose the opposite. He chose his family over his freedom, you see. And so in that way, it shows, not only does it show the opposite, the inverse of what happened with Walter, when Walter chose his freedom over his family, but it also shows, no matter how wealthy, no matter how shrewd or clever, both of these men were in a lose-lose situation. And it wasn't because of any contrivance, it was just because of what happens with sin nature, how this happens. It's like what's with Hitch, sin is its own punishment. Now, again, I really like about the shows that this. What I really like about Befall specifically is that he's been doing this for literal decades. Literally for decades he's been avoiding this. But even someone as crafty and as wealthy and as connected as Jimmy McGill, Slippin' Jimmy, even he was put into a lose-lose situation simply because of how the world works. And so, in that way, I think that both of those shows, as far as that goes, I think that was rather brilliant. And so that's what to say about that. Thanks for watching the video, and if you want to join the Syndicate, make sure to join my subreddit, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to join my server, that's where I'm the most active, where I can interact with you guys the most. I do respond to comments, but much less than I do in my server. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.